As programmers, we employ methods to make use of an object's data to obtain a certain output. The good news is, this isn't necessarily an inflexible and restricted process. In fact, one of the best features of using methods is that we can also modify their performance. Technically, we can achieve that by knowing the parameters associated with a given method and then supplying the relevant arguments upon execution. In this lecture, we'll clarify the distinction between parameter and argument, and we'll use this terminology in the context of Pandas series. Of course, the theory and principles we'll go through will be applicable not just when working with Pandas, NumPy, or Python, but with other languages and packages as well. To begin, let's use startDateDeposits as our example object. This is a series containing deposit values and the start dates of these deposits. We can call the head method to obtain the top 5 rows from this variable. However, why did we obtain 5 rows exactly? What is going on in the background, and who made the choice to display 5 rows instead of, say, 3 or 10? Before we arrive at the answers, we should consider that we can also be specific about the output. So, if we add the number 3 within the parentheses, we will obtain the first 3 rows only. We can also retry with a different number like 10. This time, we'll obtain an output containing 10 rows. Therefore, the head method provides us with the option to choose the number of displayed rows from the object it has been applied to. In programming terms, the option to set the number of rows is called a parameter of the head method. Our choice of that number in a given situation is referred to as an argument. Therefore, it turns out that in the last 2 lines of code, the values of 3 and 10 were arguments. We can also say that we have chosen, used, or also passed the value of 10 as an argument of the number of rows parameter. Thus, this parameter of the head method allows us to modify the way in which the method will operate. Now, let's take a step back and once more execute the head method without providing any arguments. As expected, instead of receiving an error or no output, we receive the first 5 rows from our series. Such was the case simply because the head method was the default argument for the number of rows parameter. The value of that default argument happens to be the integer 5. Great! In addition, a parameter of a Python method or function always has a name. Therefore, we can write the relevant name in our code explicitly. Regarding the head method, the name of the parameter we referred to as number of rows until now is actually called in. So, if we wrote startDateDeposits.head, open parentheses, in equals 10, closing parentheses, we will obtain the first 10 rows again. This technique becomes particularly handy when a method has several parameters. The benefit of using parameter names explicitly and in the right order is to inform the reader exactly what parameters you're providing the arguments for. Thus, we can avoid any ambiguity in what the supplied arguments are supposed to be used for. On the contrary, the head method has a single parameter only. Consequently, it is common to omit the characters in and equals and write just 10 in parentheses. It is clear that we are referring to the option that allows us to specify the number of displayed rows. Great! The key takeaway from this lecture is that Pandas methods have parameters you can supply with arguments to modify the performance of the given method. Furthermore, unless you're working with a well-known method containing a single parameter, it is good practice to refer to the parameters by using their names explicitly and in the right order. However, what is the right order? Also, what and how many parameters are associated with a certain Pandas method? Of course, we're not expected to know the answer by heart. This and much more information about the Pandas library has been quite extensively covered in its documentation, and the latter will be the focus of our next video. See you there.